Just a few quick announcements that we do have. There will be no ladies' Bible study tomorrow night. My wife just did not feel like she was prepared, so she will not be having it tomorrow evening. But we will have a deacons meeting tomorrow evening, 7 o'clock, and then our annual church business meeting is this Wednesday night. Right after the Wednesday night service, we'll be voting on officers. We'll be voting on the church budget. We'll be voting on trustees and other things. So make sure that you come out if you're a church member, that you are here for that. This morning, I'm going to be meeting just for a few moments right up here with everybody that's planning on going to our skiing trip this coming Saturday. If you're going to be there, you need to be here for that so that we can get that taken care of, get everything lined up so everyone knows about it. Also, please remember on this Thursday, we're going Christmas caroling. Okay, if you haven't brought in cookies, we need cookies for the bags. If you can bring those in by Wednesday night, we need to get those in here just as soon as possible. And if you want to go Christmas caroling, all you got to do is show up. Okay, show up at 6 o'clock. We're going to go around. We're going to sing the different ones. And so if you can be here, come for that. Now, if it is raining, we will not be having the Christmas caroling, but I don't think they're calling for that for Thursday night. But we'll definitely be going out if you can come. We want to definitely have that taken care of. Also, please remember on the 16th, the ladies are having a cookie exchange, which I'm quite happy for that because I get to eat a couple of cookies out of it. Rick's happy too. I can see him smiling from here. And so, ladies, that's at that evening, 6:30. They're asking you to bring 2 dozen for them and a dozen for me. Okay, no, I'm just kidding. Bring 2 dozen cookies. They're going to do the swap. Yeah, Woody's raising his hand for that one too. And so make sure you're here for that. Also, please remember that the Christmas missionary gifts. Today is the last day to give that. If you've not given that Christmas missionary gift, please write on their Christmas missionary gift. This is what we try to do. We divvy it out to all of our missionaries, send them a gift out. And so if you haven't done that, make sure you get that in and put on the offering envelope, Christmas missionary gift. Some of you may have been getting some Christmas cards and wondering where they came from. Back in the back, there is a mailbox set up. If you want to give out Christmas cards to church members, it saves you a stamp, whole lot easier. You can put them in that Christmas mailbox. They'll be put on the back table. When you leave today, if you walk out, look on that back table, see if your name's on one of those cards. If it is, it's yours. Okay, if it's not your name, don't take it. But if it is your name, you take it, and it's a Christmas card to give to you. And so it's just, we try to make it easier that way for you, for everybody in church. Whoever you want to bring one in for, you can bring that in here for the church. And then the last thing today, please remember on the 22nd, the Hicks family will be here. Brother Hicks, his 2 daughters and their families will be here. He's going to be preaching that morning. They'll be singing. He'll be doing Sunday school and the service. And then we're going to have a covered dish luncheon right after that. So we're asking you to bring enough food. We ask you to bring a meat and vegetables and dessert for your family and enough to eat off of so we can have it back here. And then right after we're through eating, we're going to come back in here. They're going to have a little concert for us and preach to us. And so it'll be just a day of that. We'll have no evening service that night. Looking forward to that. Looking forward to seeing them. If you've never heard their music, whenever they've been here, Tim and Jamie have sung songs that have their son-in-law has wrote. And so he's done some Christmas songs, and they're going to actually come out and do that for us on that day. So we're looking forward to it. We're going to be taking up a love offering for them that day. So I pray that you'll give towards that for those 3 families that'll be coming for that also. Please remember also about the daycare and church will be closed Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, and we will have a Christmas Eve candlelight service at 6 o'clock that evening. So we hope you'll come out for that. This time, the young people can be dismissed for junior church. If the adults would please take your Bibles and turn to Mark chapter 6. Mark chapter 6, please, is where we're at. Our message is entitled Walking on the Sea. Many of you know, and I'm sure you have read about in your own reading, about Jesus Christ walking on the sea. But we're going to look at this a little bit differently today. The disciples had just witnessed an incredible miracle by the Lord just before this. He had just been given 5 loaves of bread, 5 barley loaves, probably about the size of a roll, and 2 small fishes, okay? We're talking about enough to feed a lad, because that's who had it for that day, a lad, a child, young man. He took that 5 barley loaves and those 2 small fishes, And he had about 5,000 men there that did not include women and children. We're talking about there could have been up to 15,000 people there. Okay? 15,000 that he fed. He took those 5 loaves, he took those 2 fish, he blessed it, he distributed that to his disciples. They went out and they ended up giving out enough that everybody could eat, and everybody was filled. That's important to understand. It wasn't that he just gave them a little bit to eat. He gave them enough to where they had more than enough so they could push back from the table. I am full. Now you may say, wow, that's a great miracle. It doesn't end there. When they were done, the disciples went around with baskets and picked up all the fragments. And they got 12 baskets full of fragments. So he didn't just multiply it to feed them. He multiplied it to the point where there was so much left over that they could have enough to feed probably just about as many again. The disciples saw this. They must have been excited and amazed. What's God going to do next? What's going to happen next? And here we see in these verses, in verse 45, it says, and straightway he constrained his disciples to get into the ship and go to the other side before under Bethsaida, while he sent away the people. In other words, the disciples were like, man, this is great. What's he going to do next? And he said, y'all need to go. There's still work to be done. Get in the boat and go. He said there were still people there. There were still people lingering after they had eaten. They wanted to talk to Jesus maybe a little bit more. And so he was trying to get rid of the people so that he could go off and pray. And he said to the disciples, just get in the boat and go. And while they're in that boat, while they're going across the sea there, the winds pick up. Now we read in other accounts in the book of Matthew to where it was a storm pick up, but this just says it was contrary to them. In other words, they're trying to row this way, and the wind is blowing this way. So they're kind of rowing really hard and getting pushed back every time they're rowing. You ever know the old statement, you take 1 step forward and you take 2 steps back? This is what they were doing. And here they are, they're out there, and all of a sudden, they see Jesus walking on the water. And that's what I want us to look at tonight, this morning. I want us to see how they were, I'm sure, afraid, worried, anxious, whatever words you want to use with that. But then there comes Jesus walking on the water to see him. So I want us, if we can, to read verses 45 through 56 today and see walking on the sea. Starting in verse 45. And straightway he constrained his disciples to get into the ship and go to the other side before into Bethsaida, while he sent away the people. And when he had sent them away, he departed into a mountain to pray. And when even was come, the ship was in the midst of the sea, and he alone on the land. And he saw them toiling in rowing, for the wind was contrary unto them. And about the 4th watch of the night, he cometh unto them, walking upon the sea, and would have passed by them. When they saw him walking upon the sea, they supposed it had been a spirit, and cried out. For they all saw him and were troubled. And immediately he talked with them and saith unto them, be of good cheer. It is I. Be not afraid. And he went up unto them into the ship, and the wind ceased, and they were sore amazed in themselves beyond measure, and wondered. For they considered not the miracle of the loaves, for their heart was hardened. And when they had passed over, they came into the land of Gennesaret, and drew to the shore. And when they were come out of the ship, straightway they knew him, and he ran through that whole region round about, and began to carry about in beds those that were sick, where they heard he was. And whithersoever he entered, into villages or cities or country, they laid the sick in the streets, and besought him that he might touch, if it were but the border of his garment. And as many as touched him were made whole. Let's look very quickly today, just 2 points. I want us to look first of all at Jesus spent time in prayer. Look at verse 46. It says here, and when he had sent them away, he departed into a mountain to pray. Jesus had a lot of work to do in the ministry. It wasn't just going about and healing the sick and preaching the gospel. There was a lot of work to be done. And when you have a lot of work to be done in the ministry, guess what you need to have a lot of time to do? Pray. You need to be spending that time in prayer. And this is just what he did. This should be an encouragement to us as believers that he prayed often and that he prayed long. And you may say, why is that such a big deal for me? Why is that so important? Well, think about it. He is right now making intercession for us with the Father. He is right now praying for you. He knows the need. He knows the unspoken request. He knows the different things that you're going through. And he is going to his Father going, hey, Debbie has this problem. Hey, Steve has this issue. Hey, Kova's going through this, or he has a family member he's praying for, and he's praying for this person. He knows it, and that should encourage us that he is praying for us. Folks, have you ever really thought about that? How many of y'all ever asked somebody to pray for you? Anybody? Did you know that Jesus is praying for you? Did you ever ask him to make sure the Father gets that? Jesus, I need help. Tell God I need help. This is what he did here. He's praying, and he does this for us. He knows our infirmities. He knows our faults. He knows our hardships. He knows our downfalls, and he knows what we're going through. And you know what he's doing? He's not sitting at the right hand of the Father doing nothing. He is spending time in prayer for us. He's talking to God about me. Folks, that should make us stop and just say, wow. He's talking to God about Kevin. God, do you know that Kevin needs this? God, Kevin has requested prayer for such and such, and he's making intercession for us. But notice, even with the prayer, look what it says in verse 46. And when he had sent them away, he departed into a mountain to pray. Now, the verse before that, what had he done with his disciples? Get on a boat, go over the Bethsaida. Go do your thing over there. He just sent the people away, correct? So what was he then? He was all alone. He sent everybody away. He needed time to be alone. He was giving us an example to follow. You know, if you want to really spend time in prayer, and I know it says to pray without ceasing. We can pray anywhere we want to, but if you really want to get time alone with God, you're going to get alone with him. You're going to cut your phone off. You're going to turn the television off. You're going to turn the radio off. You're going to make sure the kids are either asleep or outside playing. You're going to do this. Best time to do it first thing in the morning when it's quiet, before the phone starts ringing. Maybe you do it while you're drinking your cup of coffee. But you need to do it alone. Just you and God. Spend that time. And folks, I've said this before, and I still think it's so true today. There's so many people that are Christians that neglect that time alone with God. That time of prayer. We want God to answer our prayers, but we won't spend time praying to God. God, why haven't you helped me? It's almost like he wants to open the heavens because you haven't asked. You have not because you ask not. And when you do ask, you're asking amiss. And then we wonder, why isn't God doing this for me? Why isn't God doing that for me? Why isn't God taking care of this? When was the last time you asked him to? We just think God's just supposed to do it. He's given us example to get time alone to pray. Let's not neglect that time. Let's instead make it a priority to spend time with God. Jesus gave us an example here. First of all, he's praying for us. Second of all, he got alone. But then we see, secondly, Jesus spent time in prayer, but then we see Jesus walking on the water. Jesus walking on the sea here in verses 47 through 52. He had instructed his disciples, you go on ahead, the Bethsaida, go on ahead there. He goes, get in the boat and just travel over. When they begin to travel over, it tells us, if you look in verse 48, and he saw them toiling and rowing, for the wind was contrary to them. They got to a point when they were rowing that they could not go any farther. It was to the point the wind was pushing them back. And as they were trying to go forward, the wind with waves and so on. And I'm sure in their mind they were thinking, we're not getting anywhere. They were toiling here. And folks, can I tell you something? This was a perfect example and a perfect picture of the hardships that we will encounter when he sends us out. As a disciple, are we to go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature? Are we to go and do things for the Lord? Are we to go and witness? Are we to go? Yes or no? Is it going to be hard? Yes. Are we going to toil at it? Yes. Are we going to feel like the winds of the world are pushing us in the opposite direction? Yes. You better believe it. It's a perfect example of it. So many times we feel like we get in the boat and we're rowing and we're not getting anywhere. I feel like we've been staying here this whole time. Does it mean we quit? Did these disciples quit and go, I'm done? I just have to push us wherever we're going to go. I don't care. I'm done. No, but I sure have seen a lot of Christians do that. I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not telling another person about Jesus. Folks, that's our job. And he never says it's going to be easy. They had just come back from going out and preaching the gospel. Yes, they were excited, but I'm sure it wasn't easy. The Jews and the Gentiles had never heard the gospel before, and they were not going to want to hear it, just as people today don't want to hear it. There's going to be a hard road to walk, and they must expect waves from the enemies of the gospel. They must expect the winds to be trying to push us back. But does that mean we quit? No. It's a good picture here. They were toiling, but the wind was contrary to them. The church today, I believe, is at sea, and the winds of the world are doing whatever it can to move them. And for many churches, I believe that the winds of this world has moved them in the wrong direction. Don't be like that. Don't let the winds of this world move you away from the things of God. Our anchor should be in Christ because he is our rock. But then we see, as they were struggling to get to shore, Jesus comes to them. Now, think about it. Look at verse 48. And when he saw them toiling and rowing, for the wind was contrary to them, and about the fourth night of the watch, he cometh unto them. Do we ever find out where the disciples are crying out to Jesus, Jesus, help! Jesus, we're not getting anywhere. I don't see it. But Jesus saw them. Hey, they need help. You know how many times Jesus has had to come to us because we did not come to him for help, but he still helped us? He saw us toiling away and doing all these things, and guess what? He still helped us. He still came to our aid. You know, think about it, though. He walked on the water to them, but could he not from the shore have just said, peace, be still, and everything would have stopped? Could he not have sent an angel to the front of that boat and said, just take them to the shore? He could have done a lot of things, couldn't he? He could have had that boat be lifted up out the water and scooted on across and dropped right on the shore. He could have done whatever he wanted to, but instead, he came to them because they needed help. I thank the Lord he comes to me when I need help. Look what it says in verse 48. He didn't come to them immediately, though, to their aid. Notice that it says in verse 48, it was the fourth watch of the night. You know what time that is? That's about 3 o'clock in the morning. Now think about how scared those disciples must have been. That's the waves crashing, the wind's contrary. I can't get going. I can't get moving. I can't get going forward. I might not even be able to see the other shore, but I'm rowing. You get alone, it's dark, you can't see. They've toiled for many hours, not knowing if they'd even make it across that sea. Folks, how many of us have toiled in this life and not been sure whether we were going to make it or not? You ever done things and you're not sure whether you could finish it? You ever done things for the Lord and you think, man, I just can't go on. I'm just exhausted. I've been fighting so long. I just feel like giving up. And you're talking about 3 o'clock in the morning, folks. Some of you people may not have ever seen the 3 o'clock in the morning. Some of you may not know what that is. That's just a time on the clock. But 3 o'clock in the morning, we don't know what time he set them off to go. Let's just say it was at 6 o'clock in the evening. They had been toiling for about 9 hours. How many of you have ever rowed a boat? Woody's like, not that big of a boat that we're talking about. You rowed a boat. Think about that. How many of you would want to row it for 9 hours? That sounds like fun, doesn't it? Go to the gym this evening or tomorrow morning. I'm going to get on that row machine and I'm going to do it for 9 hours. I guarantee after the first hour, your arms are going to feel like Jell-O. And pretty soon the cramps are going to kick in. And pretty soon you're going to be screaming, please, I want to stop. I've got 7 hours to go. They didn't quit. They've been toiling and toiling and going and going. And they didn't cry out. Instead, they just kept serving and kept doing. Folks, it shows us some things here that we have to be patient for the Lord to come. See, it's His time and not mine. It's His will and not mine. He may let you go through something that you may not want to go through. It's His time. It's His will. And that's what we're seeing here. But you know what? He showed up right when they needed Him. Not a second too early, not a second too late. And that's important we get. See, we live in an age where we want everything now. We want to send a text, it gets there now. We want to send a Facebook message, it gets there now. We want to take a picture and throw it on the internet, it gets there now. All these things are there now. But you know, that's not how God works. Sometimes you got to be patient. But God, don't you understand? I need this tomorrow. No, you need it when I give it to you. We think we need it now, but God says, oh, no. I'll take care of it. When did Lazarus needed to be healed? You would think immediately, right? If you were Lazarus, I need it now. But that wasn't God's plan, was it? After 3 days of being in the grave, Jesus said, Lazarus, come forth. And it was God's plan. That's what we need to understand here. They had toiled, and it was the fourth night at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then He finally shows up. As you see here, it says He came walking to them on the water. But look what it says. These winds and waves were crashing about. They were scared, but Christ came walking on the water. Folks, that shows us His power, doesn't it? As a matter of fact, Psalms 93, verse 3 and 4 says this, the floods have lifted up, O Lord, the floods have lifted up their voice, the floods lift up their waves. And verse 4 says this, the Lord on high is mightier than the noise of many waters, yea, than the mighty waves of the sea. All those waves that are crashing around about you, all those waves that are pushing your boat to and fro, all those waves that are doing all these things to you, guess what? Jesus Christ is more powerful than they are. But Pastor, you don't know what I'm going through. I don't have to. He's more powerful. We're not one of these 12 disciples in a boat rowing that's going, man, we're not getting anywhere. You may be going through health issues, financial issues, family issues, things that we don't even know about. but God does. And the Lord will take care of those things. Why? Because He's mightier. We just have to have the patience to go through it and the faith. Tells us in verse 48 that He would have passed them by. Look at the last part of verse 40. I think it's interesting. And would have passed them by. Could you imagine that? Here you are. Get yourself in the disciples' shoes in the boat. And you're rowing. And all of a sudden there goes Jesus. And He just keeps going. Was that Jesus? Did He just walk by? Couldn't have been. Yeah, it is Him. Now, why would He have walked by him? Well, if you think about it, they needed to be dependent upon Him, and they needed to ask. They needed to see that they needed help. Did Jesus need any help to get across the sea? He was doing pretty good walking, wasn't He? I mean, He was just putting one foot in front of the other. But He would have passed right by him. You know what He wanted to hear? I need help. Save us. Can Jesus save you? Can He? I don't hear you. Okay. Whosoever shall what? Call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. We've got to call on Him. Lord, I need to be saved. I need Thee. Because you know what? He might just be walking by. I would have kept on going. See, it can't all be. He's the one who chooses who will be saved, but He's also the one who wants to hear from the ones He's going to save that they know they need to be saved. Until you realize you're lost, until you realize your sin is what separates you from a holy God, until you realize that because of your sins you are going to die physically and spiritually, until you realize that you need to be saved from those sins and only Jesus Christ can save you, guess what? You'll never come to Christ. There are a lot of people that know of Jesus. There's a lot of people that may even know they're a sinner, but there's a lot of people that haven't called on Him yet. I guarantee you, when He came by and they noticed it was Him, I want to say, I guarantee a few of them went, "Hey, Jesus, help! Help!" In the other accounts, we see where Peter says, "Jesus, bid me come unto Thee." Y'all remember that? The Bible tells us about that, and he says, "Come." What did Peter do? Peter got out the boat. Peter got out the boat. I couldn't imagine what it would have been like to be Peter, to step out that boat and not feel the waves, not feel the water, but feel something solid, and to be able to take a few steps on water. But that's what Peter did. You see, we need to understand that Jesus here was doing what He was supposed to do for them. He saved them. Just as He does for us when we cry out unto Him. He saves us. The disciples here, though, it tells us, in verse 49, were afraid. Look what it says. But when they saw Him walking upon the sea, they supposed it to be a spirit and cried out. Know what that was. Who can that be? But look what it says in verse 50. They all saw Him and were troubled. I'd have been troubled too if I saw somebody walking on the water. That scared me myself. I'd have thought one of two things. Are there rocks there that are right beside us in our boat? Or is this a spirit? Or is this Jesus? Because their minds were in a totally different place than they were just a few hours ago when they were on the land. They're now in trouble. They're now fearful. What am I going to do? But Jesus here spoke some encouraging words. Look what it says in verse 50. Be of good cheer. It is I. Be not afraid. He talked to them. He made them feel at ease. His words soothed their soul. Now, guess what, folks? You that have a Bible here today, you have the words of God right there, the words of Jesus Christ, and guess what? They will put you at ease. It will soothe your soul if you'll spend time reading it. I mean, look what it says. He just looks at them. He must have known by their faces. He must have known by the way they cried out that they were scared. And he says, oh, no, be of good cheer. Smile. I mean, they were saved. Be of good cheer. It is I. Be not afraid. He told them, it is I. Here was that familiar voice. Here was that familiar person. You know, the Bible tells us in the book of John that the sheep hear his voice and know him. We should know when he's speaking to us. It is I. Be of good cheer. Don't be discouraged. Don't be scared. It's me. You're okay now. This is what he's telling them. Just the knowledge of Christ should be enough to make us cheerful. But do you know what I see a lot of times with Christians? I see a lot of times Christians walking around with a frown upon their face, or like they've sucked on a lemon. There's no cheer there. There's no joy. You know why? Because many of us as Christians, our joy comes from our circumstances, when our joy should come from the Lord. Oh, but my home life is terrible. That's not where your joy comes from. My job stinks. That's not where your comes from. I don't have a job. That's not where your joy comes from. I don't have any money. My health is terrible, and so on and so forth. That's not where your joy comes from. My joy should come from the Lord. Now look what it says in verse 51. I think this is interesting. And he went up unto them into the ship. What does it say happened? And the wind ceased. Now I know that in the account of Matthew, he says, peace, be still, and the winds and the waves stop. Correct? This is amazing to me. All he had to do was get in the boat. That's all he had to do. All he had to do was get in the boat, and everything went calm. Folks, the question you have to ask yourself, is Jesus in your boat? You want to know why there's turmoil? Maybe Jesus is sitting in the boat. The winds didn't stop until he got in. Then it stopped. Is Jesus in the boat in your life? Is Jesus there with you, or is he just some passing acquaintance? Is he there with you, or is he just passing by? Oh, I know of him. I've heard of him. On Sundays, I hear of him from the preacher, from my Sunday school teacher, but I really don't know him. He's just a passing acquaintance. No wonder there's so much turmoil. No wonder your boat's being rocked. He needs to get in the boat. Doesn't have to say a word. You know, just the presence of Jesus brings peace. Doesn't have to say a word. I can remember at times when I was a child that just the presence of my Father brought me peace. Just his presence. I'll never forget when I was a child growing up, and we were coming home from church one night, and our driveway at the time where I lived was a long driveway. And I remember as we pulled onto our driveway, our front porch light was on and some lights in the front. And I remember my dad and my mom going, oh my, which of course made all of us go, huh? And I can remember the front doors of my house being laid out in the street, or excuse me, in our front yard. I can remember that one of the doors kind of hanging off, the other one laying on the ground. I can remember my dad going, y'all sit in the car and don't move, as he got inside. This was like a week before Christmas. All of our Christmas presents were gone. Somebody come in, and I don't know how they got it out, our television. It was one of those old 70s models that was about this thick and about that big. You know, when those big ones all wood. Must have taken 4 of them to pick it up and carry it out. And maybe the reason why they ripped the doors off the handles, off the hinges, I don't know. They stole everything from us. I can remember that. I can remember that night, my dad going to my next door neighbor and trying to figure out how they were going to get the doors back up because they had ripped them off the hinges. But can I tell you where I had peace at? Beside my father. Because I knew if Dad was there, I'm okay. I ain't got to worry. Even I may not have front doors on the house. I'm okay. I may not have a Christmas present. Dad's here. I'm okay. I remember they called the cops. The police came out there. Must have been 5 of them showed up. Blue lights flashing. We were scared to death. Went out and took a report. We didn't know what was going on. I can't remember how old I was, 6, 7, 8 years old when this happened. I just remember vividly seeing the doors, one hanging off one hinge with the other one laying in the yard, going, but I had peace with my dad because I was in his presence. Do you have that kind of peace today? Because the Lord's with you, in your presence. See, when he got in the boat, it was different. The disciples were amazed, astonished at what had just happened. A new miracle just took place. He walked on water. He calmed the waves and the wind. This confirmed to them that he was the Son of God. But look what, I think this is kind of interesting. Look at verse 52. For they considered not the miracle of the loaves, for their heart was hardened. They were amazed and astonished and shocked, but they didn't even bother to think about what he had just done. Why should they have been amazed and shocked at a miracle that he performed when he had just performed one? Why should that amaze us? Why should we go, oh, I can't believe the Lord did it? Why? What did he do for you yesterday? What did he do for you the day before that? How about last year? How about 2 years ago? Some of you that have had health issues, and you've seen God take care of you. And then you look at it and go, I can't believe it when he did it again. Really? It should not make us go, I can't believe. You know what it should make us do? God said he'd take care of me. And I had faith. And he did it. But their heart was so hardened, and not in the way we like to think, but their heart was so tough right now because of the situation they were going through, they totally forgot about the loaves and the fishes. They concentrated on themselves and their own problems. Because if you think about it, loaves and the fishes, did that really affect them? Did it really have a big impact upon them? No, they could have reached in their pocket and went into the town and got food for themselves. Remember, that's what they told the Lord to do. Hey, just send them away. We'll go get us something. You send them away. We're going to affect them. This affected just them. Totally different world, didn't it? I look at it like this. It's one thing when COVID comes to me and asks for prayer for his wife. Would you please pray for my wife? She's got vertigo. It's going to affect me, but it's not going to affect me the same way if I go to COVID and ask him to pray for my wife. Different ball game, isn't it? See, it's a little different with COVID's wife. Not that I don't love Candy, but I guarantee I don't love her the way he does. It's going to be different. This is affecting me, the disciples are saying. It's not affecting those 5,000 people who didn't have anything to eat. This is affecting me. And their heart was hardened. Is that not us? So many times? Well, that doesn't affect me, so why should I worry about it? I know where my next meal is coming from, so why should I worry about that guy over there? I know what I'm going to do over here, so why should I worry about that? It doesn't affect me. This affected them, and it made their heart harden. Finally, very quickly, his welcome, we see in verses 53 through 56, at Gennesaret. He goes here in verses 53 through 56. He pulls up in his boat with his men, and the people of Gennesaret come out, and they know him. And what do they automatically start doing? Bringing out the sick. Bringing out the sick. Hey, we've heard that you can do miracles. Let's bring out our sick. If we can just touch the hem of his garment, it tells us here, these ones will be healed. They line the streets with their sick just to be healed. Now, what does it not tell you they want in these verses? You're getting there. You know what they want? We don't see anything about teaching about repentance. We don't see anything about the gospel. Just fix my temporal needs. I need to be healed. Just fix me. Isn't that interesting? Don't worry about the spiritual part of it. Just fix me. That's sad. If you truly think about it, that's sad. Here is the Son of God walking in their city, and all they want is do me a favor. But isn't that like many people today? Just heal me. I look at it like this. Many people want to be saved of their sins, but they don't want to live for the Lord. They don't want to commit to Him. Oh, they want Him to commit to them, make my life rosy and peachy and make everything great, but when they have to do something for God, I ain't got time. That's going to interfere with my plans. Just fix me. When you go to the doctor, what do you want them to do? Fix you. I got a problem, fix me. When you go to a mechanic, what do you want them to do? Fix me. Fix my car. It's not running right. Fix me. We go to God, fix me. But here's the thing. As a believer, you know what He's doing? Daily, through regeneration, He's fixing you. Problem is, we don't like it. We fight against it. Hey, I don't want you doing that anymore. I want to. I don't want you going there anymore, but I want to. He's trying to fix us. You ever been to the doctor and they said, you need to do this, and you said, no. You need to lose 30 pounds. I need to find a new doctor. I've heard people say this. Doctor comes to us and says, you need to lose 30 pounds. I heard somebody goes, I need to lose about 185, which is how much you weigh. I'm going to find me a new doctor. Because I'm not losing 30 pounds, even though you need to lose 30 pounds. We don't want to be fixed spiritually. We want our salvation, and that's it. And that's not biblical salvation. That's man's salvation. That's man's philosophy. Because man has taught us this. Come to Christ, become a child of God, and then go do whatever you want to do. That's unbiblical. These people here, we just want to be made whole physically. How many of us want to be made whole spiritually? This is what He's saying here. See that walking on the water? I don't know what you're going through, what difficulties are there. But what kind of faith do you have as you're going through it? Maybe today you haven't ever called upon Him to save you. Maybe today that's what you need to do. Christ, I need to be saved. He's passing by. Christ, I need to be saved. I need to call on you. Maybe today you know Christ. What are you going through? Maybe He's not in the boat yet. And you don't have that peace. This morning we'll give an invitation in just a moment. The altar will be open. If you need to come, I pray you'll come. Let's bow our heads, please. Gracious Heavenly Father, I pray today, Lord, there are ones here in this church building, ones possibly listening that don't know Christ. They're not sure of their salvation. They have not peace. Lord, I pray today that Thou wouldst move in their hearts to draw them unto Thyself. Lord, I pray if there are Christians here today that, Lord, are rowing or toiling and doing for thee, Lord, that thou wilt not let them quit. Lord, I pray that they would continue on in their service for thee. Lord, if their faith is getting weak, I pray, Lord, that thou wouldst work in their lives. I pray, Lord, thou wouldst let them come to this altar and ask for an increase of faith, and that thou wouldst move in their lives in a mighty way. Lord, I pray that thou wouldst let us see that it's our job to go. It's our job to tell, even though it may be hard. We're to still go and we're to still tell. And Father, I pray through the invitation, Lord, that thou wouldst do a mighty work. I pray this all in Jesus' holy and precious name. Amen. With heads bowed and eyes closed, let's stand together, please. Miss Sarah plays a song of invitation. If you need to come, won't you come?